Zach here, and today I'm joined by Jeff Martin, the CEO of NIADA since February 2023 and the former executive director at the Texas Independent Auto Dealer Association. We're going to discuss the upcoming NIADA 2024 convention, compliance in the industry, the used car marketplace, and the latest initiatives from NIADA. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Man, thank you, Zach. Thanks for having me. Certainly look forward to visiting with you a little bit here today. I think it was probably about a year ago this month, or maybe last month, that last time we sat down to visit.
Absolutely. And now you've been CEO of NIADA for over a year. What has been your observations and most noteworthy achievements for the organization in the last year?
Most noteworthy achievements, I'd probably point to, there are 3 or 4 things. When I first came to the association, we had just taken on the dealer performance groups. And so making sure that we were able to transition the dealer performance groups into the NIADA 20 groups and trying to do that where we were focusing on the needs of our members. And primarily the 20 group members at that time. That took some doing. We brought some new moderators in, and there were a lot of moving parts to that. So, but we feel very good about the direction of that program, and certainly, excited about continuing to see how we can service the 20 group members in that particular area. And then last year about this time, we were talking about convention, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about convention today, but we ended up having 100 more dealers in 2023 than we had in 2022. So that was something that we were very excited about last year, and we're on pace to have even more members this year. Our goal was to have 800 or just over 800 members, and we're on track to have right around 800 dealer attendees at our convention this year. So that's something that we were excited about last year, and we continue to be excited about this year. But a big part of what we really focused on this last year was making sure that we were managing our members' dollars to the best of our ability. When I first came to the association, we had 35 employees. We're around 20 employees right now. And so doing that, making sure that you're being responsible with your members' dollars, the dues dollars that they're spending, but also making sure that you are meeting the needs that they have can be a little bit of a challenge. And so I would say that's one of the things that's probably not the sexiest thing to talk about, but it's building that base for an association is extremely important to give us the opportunity to start growing in the future. And we spent a lot of time doing that, putting a budget together that we felt like was a very responsible budget. But again, just being very cognizant and responsible for those dues dollars. And then the last thing, focusing on, our responsiveness and making sure that we're taking care of members' needs. In January, we had 12,915 members, and we're currently just under 13,500 members. And a lot of that credit goes to the state associations and the executive directors and the CEOs and their teams that are out there recruiting members. We were starting to see a little bit of a decline in membership. And to be real frank with you, Zach, we even budgeted for no membership growth in 2024. That wasn't our goal, but we were just trying to be responsible with the budgeting. And so to see that number start to climb again, it's kudos to the state associations and what they're doing and making sure that they're taking care of the state members. But that's probably the thing that we're the most excited about and the most proud of from 2023 to going into the Q1 of 2024.
Yeah, that's extremely impressive. Definitely a banner year, for the organization with that sort of growth, over 500 dealers. And I wanted to ask you a state level IADA question. So previously you ran the Texas Independent Auto Dealer Association, one of the largest IADAs in the country. How is that different on that state level from running the NIADA, which is kind of the national organization, since this transition is fresh on your mind?
Wow, I don't know that I've ever had that question before. I'll say this. So this is the 3rd association that I've had the pleasure of being a part of. I was a part of a teachers association when I first started my career, and then had an opportunity to run TXIADA, and now here at NIADA. And I would say at the at a very high level, there's not much difference. Every 501c6, is kind of a member-owned, member-governed association. One of our primary responsibilities is that we're very involved in lobbying, and then making sure, that you're kind of listening to your members, taking care of your members' needs. I mean, that's a big part of what associations are about. But the biggest difference that I think I have found here at NIADA from the previous two associations I was a part of is in kind of the way that the budget is set up. So at TIADA and even at the Teachers Association, about 50%, or actually more than 50% of the overall budget came from member dues. And at NIADA, the structure is very different. About 10% of the overall budget comes from membership dues. So when a state collects the dues, they remit $60 to NIADA. And that ends up making up a little over 10% of our overall budget. So a lot of the budget is generated through non-dues revenue. And so I think for me, just making sure that I'm focusing on building those programs and building those platforms, or that we are focused on building those programs and those platforms that help us generate those non-dues revenue so that we can fill the needs of the members. I think that's probably the biggest difference, if you will, between TIADA and NIADA. And then the other thing is, everywhere I've been, there's always been like a local chapter element. But most of the time, the local chapters are run by volunteers. And at NIADA, we have the state associations that have the affiliation with NIADA. And it's such a rich resource for NIADA. I think that obviously I was a part of that group when I was with Texas for years. And I never felt like we used NIADA strength and the state strengths as much as we could have. We certainly did a very good job at it, but that's one of the things I want to focus on, is making sure that the state associations understand that NIADA is frankly just a part of, or an element of what we can do to help support the state associations, primarily because the leaders that we have in those areas are just so knowledgeable. So that's a unique opportunity and something that I didn't experience at TIADA.
So I love state associations. It's really been a big part of, growing my company, Selly, and it was such a pleasure to just go across the country and see the different IADAs and how they were operated. But for some of the listeners who might not be familiar, what exactly is a 501c6?
Sure, yeah. So a 501c6 is basically a nonprofit status given by the IRS. And most people are familiar with either a 501c6 or a 501c3. And so the difference between a 3 is a charitable organization. So a lot of times that's where you'll see scholarships or, save the whatever it is that you're working to save. A 501c6 gives you the opportunity to lobby. And that's the primary difference between the two. But it's an IRS status.
Got it. And moving on, I'm really excited about NIADA this year. One of the reasons it's being held at my favorite hotel in Las Vegas, the Wynn, which is just absolutely 5-star top to bottom. What are some of the new changes at the show this year? What should dealers be excited about?
So I would say we've always had education, but we made some tweaks to education, which I think that attendees will see this year. The primary change that you'll see is about 50% of our education is either dealer-led or they are dealer panels. We have found that dealers learning from dealers is some of the most effective education that you can put out there. And so getting feedback from our members saying we want to see more dealers offering education or being a part of the panel discussion. So you'll see that difference. And then the other thing that we did is we put our education in 5 different tracks. So we have compliance, management, advertising, retail, and buy here, pay here. And again, that's geared to help the dealer attendee understand when they're coming to the convention, here's some areas where I might want to try to get into that certain track and get some of the education. I think that just like I go to a lot of conventions, and I feel like when education is organized that way, it makes it easier to understand where I'm going, what I should be expecting whenever I go to that particular education session. And then obviously the Expo, you had mentioned attending the state associations and the Expo. There's so much value that an attendee can get out of the Expo. The Expo is not new to the association. I know that was your question, but there are a number of new vendors, a number of new products, and a number of new services, and that's primarily driven because our industry is changing so much. I think that spending 3 to 4 hours in that Expo is some of the best time that you can spend as an attendee, just visiting with the vendors, finding out what new products and services are out there. And then one of the other things that is a change, we continue to hear that, funding is extremely difficult in our industry right now. And we have a finance fair on Tuesday. And previously, the finance fair ran against education. And we had a number of dealers who were telling us, or a number of attendees who were saying, I really wanted to go to the finance fair, but I didn't want to miss the education. So this year on Tuesday, we traditionally have an awards luncheon. Instead of having the awards luncheon at that time, we're going to have the finance fair luncheon. So we're going to have a lunch for our dealer attendees. It's going to give them an opportunity to network, but it's primarily focused on spend some time in here with some of the lenders, understanding what some of your options are. Again, it's trying to help our attendees address some of the issues that we continually hear out there.
So who from the dealership should be brought to NIADA? Like what decision makers, what roles?
Every single person you have at the dealer. No, I'm just kidding. I think that owners, obviously our education is geared toward, owners of dealerships. And then I would say managers, whether it's your general manager, your finance manager, service managers, compliance, if you're in buy here, pay here, your collections manager. We have education that's really geared for all of those levels. And then I would also say, if you feel like you have a superstar at your dealership, someone who is kind of an up and comer, those are the individuals that usually come back with those nuggets and say, hey, I heard something in this session. I heard something in this class. Because keep in mind, we'll have 5 concurrent sessions going on simultaneously. So if, depending on the size of your dealership, if you bring 1 person or 2 people, obviously you're not going to be able to attend all of the sessions. So if you have someone in your dealership who you feel like is one of those up and comers and a superstar, I would encourage you to have them attend the convention as well.
I love that. And for the dealers who are attending the convention, what will help them create a near immediate positive impact at the dealership that they could pick up from the show?
Yeah, immediate impact. Well, so education is the hallmark of what we do, right? And so I think everybody will get something out of education, but it really depends on what the needs are at your dealership, depending on how much you may get out of that and it making an immediate impact. Certainly having the FTC there and the IRS and the CFPB, you're going to have more knowledge and maybe stay abreast of some of the issues that they're working on. So I would say that probably is the most immediate out of education. And then the rest of the education really depends on your needs. But as I had mentioned earlier, I think the Expo sometimes has the most immediate impact because as the industry changes, as new services and new products come into the marketplace, that's where I think you can learn something and you can take back and say, I need to consider using that product or using that service in my dealership. And then, for me, it probably depends on the attendee, but for me, the networking can have the most immediate impact. You can meet somebody at an event like this that you end up building a lifelong relationship with, but someone who has the same struggles that you have, or maybe someone who had been in the same place you were at before, but has tried something different that's working. And I mean, Zach, you've been in this industry for a long time. Independent dealers, they're amazing to me and how much they'll share information with each other. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times the immediate impact is that relationship that you build that you can follow up on really within the next couple of weeks after the convention.
Definitely agree. You never know who you're going to meet at NIADA. I've just met some amazing people in the industry just by chance, just walking around the show floor. So definitely agree with that. And what have you done in the past year with NIADA in terms of working on building awareness of new compliance updates in the industry as an organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, Zach. It's one of the areas where I feel like we have the most room for growth. So if you want to talk about just this last year, obviously the vehicle shopping rule or the cars rule, that's kind of the shiny thing in the water right now. Everybody's waiting to see what ends up happening, as that kind of works its way through the court system. But we put on a webinar to try to help educate dealers. Something's going to come out of that rule, right? I mean, there's going to be some new requirements, some new compliance requirements. So we put together a webinar to inform dealers what the new rule says, also to inform dealers what we were doing. As you know, in January, NADA and TXIADA filed a lawsuit to stop the FTC vehicle shopping rule. And then shortly after that, TXIADA and NIADA teamed up and we filed an amicus brief. So keeping dealers abreast of what's going on in that particular area. And then outside of that, we use Dashboard is the weekly email that we send out. We send out every Wednesday, we send out an email, and there's always at least one article in there that we feel like is the most pressing compliance article or the most pressing regulatory article. And most of the time, we'll have kind of our own comment on that and using that as a platform or as an opportunity to help keep dealers abreast of what's going on and to keep them educated. And then obviously we have our magazine that goes out once a month. I'd say those are some of the things that we're trying to do. And we also collectively as a national association, we attended 15 different state dealer events. Again, just discussing legislative and regulatory issues. We also implemented a program this year where we're monitoring. There are a handful of states out there where we feel like legislators sometimes are a little bit more aggressive with their legislation. And so we've started monitoring a handful of those states. There are about 12, to be real frank with you. Where we look at every piece of legislation that is filed. And then we had some opportunities in Illinois is one where we were able to lean in and kind of help stop a piece of legislation that we felt like was going to negatively impact the industry. Most of our state associations out there handle all of this on their own, and we're basically here to support them if they need help. But we do have some state associations that need more support than others. And then the last thing I'll mention is our policy conference in Washington, D.C., giving our members an opportunity to go out and visit with their congressman or visit with their senator and talk about, the issues that are affecting them at their dealership. That is by far the most effective thing that we can do as an association is to put that dealer in front of their legislator.
So what do you see as the biggest challenges? We've been talking a little bit about compliance. What do you see as the biggest challenges for used car dealers today?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier being able to go out and visit with the various states whether they're having their convention or they're having an event for their dealers, and it's a unique opportunity for me to get to hear from dealers. And the challenges that I've heard over and over is inventory, capital, and compliance. How do we stay? Inventory is kind of unique. We have to wait for the product to fall to us. And capital. As interest rates have increased, we've seen some of our dealers really struggle depending on how they're leveraged because some of the banks and some of the lenders, unfortunately, are really tightening up. And so when that happens, it makes it very difficult on our dealers. And then we've talked a lot about compliance already. But, in light of the recent Supreme Court hearing, supporting the funding of the CFPB or the way the CFPB is funded, I think that the CFPB is going to feel a little bit emboldened, and we're already seeing a lot of new rules coming out from the FTC, and we need to make sure that we're doing two things. One, that we're at the table having conversations with those agencies so that they understand how this impacts our industry. But when there is a new regulatory environment or there's a new rule, we need to make sure that we're educating our dealers to help them stay compliant. So I would say those are the three things, Zach. I mean, inventory, capital, and compliance are the three things we continue to hear.
Definitely agree with those. And kind of shifting gears, what excites you about the outlook for the used car marketplace this year?
Well, the thing that excites me today is the same thing that has excited me for the last 17 years. It is an ever-changing landscape, and I just enjoy kind of being a part of that. I always say I kind of live vicariously through a number of or all of our members, because a lot of times I wish I had the guts to do what they do. But the thing that I think is really exciting in 2023, used car dealers sold more used cars than franchise dealers. That's the first time that's happened in 13 years. So what that tells me is we know the customers are out there, right? We've got to do everything that we can to help them be able to find the inventory and the capital that we talked about earlier to be able to put those dealers in those vehicles. So if there's something that if I were a member out there, I were a used car dealer and I was looking to be excited about something, that's a pretty telling number that we had more used car dealers sell vehicles, more used vehicles anyway, than franchise dealers in the last 13 years. So we've got some real opportunities in front of us. We have to help our members find ways to capitalize on that.
And what are some of the other events in 2024 that NIADA is going to put on?
Yeah, so I mentioned the policy conference earlier. So coming out of the convention, the policy conference will be in September in Washington, D.C. Registration for that, I believe, opens next week. And then we also have a Buy Here, Pay Here dealer forum, which is going to be in New Orleans this year. The Buy Here, Pay Here dealer forum is kind of exciting for us because it's a really unique way for dealers to find education. What we've done in the past and what we plan to do this year is we'll put dealers of similar size and similar scope and business strategy in a room together. They'll have a dealer moderator. They'll walk through an agenda in the morning and talk about specific issues that are affecting their dealership. It's a unique training model. We did this in Texas a few years ago, and it was very, very successful. So it's not so much of the sit and get training that you're kind of used to seeing at traditional conventions. It really is much more of a hands-on learning opportunity, and so that's going to take place in November in New Orleans. We're also relaunching the Certified Master Dealer Program. So we're going to discuss that a little bit at convention, and we're looking at Q1 of 2025 to offer our first Certified Master Dealer program. We're planning to have two different programs, one for Buy Here, Pay Here dealers and one for retail dealers. As we've built this program out, we just continue to identify there are enough differences in those two business models that if we're going to have a Certified Master Dealer program, we need to have two different models out there. So obviously very excited about that. And then state education, we're working with a number of the states who are asking us to come out and put education on. I'm just going to call them boot camps. And we anticipate that we're going to have around 4 of those boot camps in different places around the country. But again, we're going to do all that working through the states to launch those.
And if a dealer is listening, they're not a member of NIADA yet, why should they join?
Yeah, some of the things we mentioned earlier, Zach, staying, educated, staying abreast of what's going on in the industry. Certainly one of our responsibilities to continue to create value for membership. The way that you do that is if you're a member of your state association, then attending the convention is significantly less expensive. In fact, it's $300 difference between being a member and a non-member. So, creating value for membership is part of the reason, part of what we have a responsibility to do, and it should be one of the reasons that people want to join the association. And then the states do a phenomenal job putting programs together to create value for the members in the states. But the real reason is, to basically make sure your voice is being heard, whether it's at your state capital or it's in Washington, D.C. When we put programs together and we're getting input from our dealers, eventually that leads into our legislative agenda. And if you're not a part of the association, basically someone else is carrying the water for you. And I think at the minimum, you should be a part of your state association so that you're supporting the voice of that association. It's the only industry out there. It's the only association out there that's representing your industry. Obviously, I would like to see our members become more involved, but at the bare minimum, they should be members of the state association.
And I bet you've sold some dealers listening to this episode. Hey, let me sign up for NIADA 2024 now. How do they get their passes and get signed up for the show?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to the website, www.niada.com, and you can click on events and click on the convention and you can register. If that doesn't suit you, you can always call our office number. That's 817-640-3838, and we'll help you get registered. That's the That's the easiest way to register. And as I had mentioned earlier, if you're a member of your state association, it's only $745 to join the association. If you're not a member, it's $1,045. So if you're not sure whether you're a member or not, you can give us a call and we can certainly help sign you up with your state association and make sure that you get that member discount.
That's awesome. And Jeff, as always, really enjoyed you on the podcast today. Thanks so much.
Zach, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for what you guys do in the industry, for helping us have a voice out there, and I appreciate you having us.